So next up, what I suspect will be probably the most popular section, and that is short keys that you can use for the mod. Various things just to help you get around, see things, and just make your life significantly easier. So let's talk about loads of these. First of all, when you do draw your deck, you'll have this little, normally you would have this little shorthand down here. This is standard for TTS. It lets you kind of see your hand wherever you are on the board if you're not looking. If you don't want this, like I personally don't, you can press H, and that will disable that very easily as well. More card stuff as well. If you want to look at a card, but you're zoomed out and like you're trying to look at the whole board, but you want to look at a card in more detail. If you hold Alt over a card, you'll get a sort of a magnification of the card, and you can use your mouse wheel to enlarge it or shrink it as you desire. You can also use the M button, which is the proper magnification, and this will let you magnify a spot on the board you're actually looking at. Again, you can zoom in or out as you so desire. If you want to look at cards in secret on the board, you can also use a couple of methods to do this. Let's say that I have the Imperium Ceremony card, which lets me draw 2 Intrigue cards from the top of the deck when I play it, and I get to put 1 back. Well, there's a few ways of doing this. First of all, you can just draw the cards to your hand. If you hover over it and press 2 at the top of your keyboard, you can draw 2 cards to the top of it deck. This area is completely hidden. No one else can see this at any point. Anything in there is totally safe information for everyone apart from the black GM player who can see through it. So let's say that I'm happy with what I want to get here. Pretty good. So I can go flip the card here I don't want with the F card and drag that and just throw it on top of the deck like that as well. If it's a card that you want to put underneath a deck, again, there's 2 ways you can go ahead and do that here. You can, the manual way would just be to pick up the deck here, put this underneath, and then just go ahead and put that on top here, and that will be perfectly sufficient. But if you want to be really snazzy and show off to all your friends, then what you can do is take the card, while you're holding it at the left mouse click, if you hold the right mouse click at the same time, this will push the card onto the surface of the table. And what you can do is if you push it, say, here, and then slide it into the deck, it will then slide it to the bottom of the pack. Very cool, very useful. Not that useful for this game particularly, but I know other mods that is really invaluable for. And if you want to be really, really fancy, you can even pull cards off the bottom of a deck. Not that useful for this mod, but again, there are other mods this is really, really handy for. Let's say, for example, maybe I was trying to put my Intrigue like in the bottom of this deck or something, and I'm just like, whoops, and it goes underneath that one. Well, rather than having to go ahead and dig through all the cards to get it out, if you hold a deck up with the left mouse click and then Alt right click, you can drop the bottom card off of a deck. And that way you can just get that immediately without having to mess around anything like that, and then you can put it underneath what you're actually intending to do. Very useful, not that helpful for this mod, but it's something you can do. Next up, we'll look at object grouping. This can be very useful, especially for combat, which is absolutely invaluable time saver. So let's say I'm playing as Paul Atreides here, and let's say that I want to go to Highliner for a combat for whatever reason. I want to go ahead and beat the piss out of dudes. Well, let's go to Highliner. Let's go get ourselves an absolute load of troops. Now, the next problem you've got is you've then obviously got to, you know, add those troops to combat, and you're like, well, great, let's see, how many can I deploy? Well, it's 5 plus 2 for guys, that's 7. All right, so that's 1, 2, it's 3, and you can see this can take forever, especially if you've got rapid mobilization deploying all of your dudes. There's various quick ways to do it. First of all, you can just simply drag a box of all the dudes that you want. So, for example, I can just drag a box here, highlight 7 troops, put them in that way. That's a heck of a lot easier. Another way you can go ahead and select multiple things as well is if you right-click something to pick it up, and then left-click even, and then right-click on something else, you can stack different troops like this. So I can go ahead and stack my 7 troops up this way, and then go put them into combat, and that's all lovely and good as well. But the problem you can get, and admittedly this is obviously not helped by the fact this is still up, is that if it's a heavy conflict like in the tier 3s and everyone is starting to barrel into combat, you can get troops everywhere, and then people then trying to calculate how many swords have I got on reveal, how many am I supposed to add, and then people start using intrigues, and it becomes very quickly a complete quagmire trying to work out if people's strength that they've calculated is actually correct or not. And that's something that's obviously no good at all. So what I would suggest people do when they're busy putting in the troops. And also, even afterwards, is if you're going to go ahead and throw a load of troops into combat here, so I'm going to throw late in, rather than just dumping them in like this, which you can do, you can organize your troops to look a little cleaner. If you hold a group of anything, it can be objects, it can be cards, whatever, you can use the number keys at the top of the keyboard in order to organize these into much cleaner parts. So this is 2, for example. This is 3. That's 4. And this way, what you can do is you can then make things a lot clearer in the combat here. So we know, for example, yellow has definitely got 8. We can do this and know that green has 5. Blue here has 5 as well when I pick up that last one there. And this just makes calculation and tracking things so much easier and cleaner. And because when people rush and people just throw stuff in, this is where mistakes happen and arguments happen and people get really angry with each other, and we don't want any of that. As mentioned, this can also be done for cards as well. So let's say you've been trashing the other stuff and you come look at your pile like, oh, well, hold on, have I got 1 dagger here I've trashed? Have I trashed 2? I don't really know what's going on. Again, just highlight everything, pick them up, you set the 2 key, and it will hopefully display them, apart from occasionally when cards get stuck on each other, which that does happen occasionally. But you get the idea, and it's just a much cleaner process. And that way, if anyone's looking at the table, they can see much better now at a glance. They can see, yes, yellow's got 8 troops, red's got 8, rather than this whole mess of a situation. People like zooming in like, what's going on here? It just slows the game down. One more thing I'll make a mention of here in this section is Intrigue Stealing. So in the secret space, there is the ability to not only get hold of your intrigue, but if a player on the table has 3 or more intrigues, you can take one of them from them. This, again, is a completely manual process, and you do it yourself, and there's 1 or 2 ways I would suggest you to do this. So let's say that I'm in combat here, and it's like I see, oh, that tricky beast, he's got a lot of intrigues. Well, he should have been using them. It's time to punish. So let's say I go into secrets here, click the button, I get hold of my intrigue, but you can see here, I don't do any stealing, it's got to be done manually. So, you'll see 2 different options, and it's up to you if you prefer. One group of, what some players will do, is they will take their entire hand, they'll flip it down, they'll group it using the G button, put it here, give it a shuffle, and then say, go ahead and pick one. You can do that. What I prefer to do, however, and this is just my personal preference, if I put these all back into the hand here, is what I will say to a player, or if they're going to steal from me, is I will simply just highlight the cards in my hand, flip them down, and then you can use the R button to shuffle. You can use this normally to like shuffle your deck normally, or you can shuffle intrigue piles, whatever you so fancy. But you can actually shuffle your cards randomly in your hand, and then I'll simply say, just take one from my hand. And I think this is an easier process. And then just simply, you can take it either by like pulling it out and drawing it to your hand. But the problem is that say if, say this card for example, if the player has forgotten to flip the cards over, then when you pull it, oops, everyone can see what you're taking. Bit of a problem. The other alternative, what you can do is you can just simply go ahead and hover over a card. You can do this on the board as well and press the 1 key, and it will draw directly from their hand to yours. And who knows, maybe you might find something pretty useful. So last couple of short keys, these are generally used for indication purposes. You may have seen a few times me going ahead and generating an arrow key. This can be done in a couple of ways. There is a side menu, which I'm sure some of you may have in the tools section. And you can definitely collect getting hold of arrows. There's various little tools here as well, drawing, creating lines, you know, and various bits and pieces. But if you just hover over a space and just press the tab key, you can create an arrow, and you can use this obviously to indicate players like pointing their attention to something for whatever reason. You can also draw lines as well, temporary lines as well across the table. If you hold the tab key, you'll generate this little ruler thing, and you can sort of show a line from one here. In theory, as you can see here, there's actually, this is used for measuring, and this is used in some games that require like moving across the board to make sure that you can move a certain distance. But it also doubles as like an indicator line, so you could say, you know, you've gone to forward space, but you haven't like taken your influence bump. You should probably do that, or anything along those lines. Very, very useful.